She offered her body to the human, begging him to make her a mother. Dying light. The transport shuttle, Celestial Wind, descended through the atmospheric shields of Nexus Prime, its hull gleaming against the backdrop of 3 distant suns. Inside, Serafina pressed her palm against the viewing port, watching the research station grow larger with each passing moment. Her violet eyes reflected both determination and sorrow as she observed the bustling hub of interspecies cooperation below. The Valorian ambassador stood gracefully, her flowing silver hair catching the artificial light of the cabin. She wore the traditional deep blue robes of her people, adorned with crystalline threads that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. At 28 cycles old, she carried herself with the poise expected of nobility, yet her shoulders bore the weight of her entire species' future. Landing sequence initiated, announced the automated system. Welcome to Nexus Prime, Sector 7's premier research facility. As Serafina disembarked, she was struck by the diversity surrounding her. Beings from dozens of worlds moved through the corridors, some humanoid, others entirely alien in form. The air hummed with translation devices and the constant chatter of scientific discovery. Despite the overwhelming nature of it all, she felt a flicker of hope. If anywhere in the galaxy held answers to her people's plight, it would be here. Her escort, a polite Centaurian official, led her through gleaming corridors toward the xenobiology wing. Dr. Marcus Webb is our leading expert on genetic compatibility between species, he explained, his 4 arms gesturing expressively. If anyone can help the Valorian situation, it's him. They paused before a laboratory door marked with various alien scripts. Through the transparent aluminum, Serafina could see a tall human man bent over a microscope, his dark hair slightly disheveled from concentration. He wore a simple white coat over casual clothing, and there was something about his focused intensity that immediately drew her attention. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Dr. Webb," the escort announced. "May I present Ambassador Serafina of Valoria?" Marcus looked up, and their eyes met for the first time. His were warm brown, filled with intelligence and kindness. For a moment neither spoke. Serafina felt an unexpected flutter in her chest, something beyond diplomatic protocol. "Ambassador," Marcus said, rising and extending his hand in the Audi human gesture of greeting. His voice was gentle, with an underlying strength that resonated with her. "I've been reviewing your people's medical data. I'm deeply sorry for what you're facing." She accepted his hand, noting its warmth and the calloused fingers that spoke of hands-on scientific work. "Thank you, Dr. Webb. Your reputation precedes you. They say you've successfully facilitated genetic bridges between species before." "A few minor successes," he admitted humbly, releasing her hand. "But nothing approaching the complexity of the Valorian genetic matrix. Your people's DNA is remarkably sophisticated, and unfortunately that sophistication seems to be working against natural reproduction now." Serafina's expression grew solemn. "Our scientists estimate we have perhaps 50 years before the last Valorian child is born. After that..." She let the implication hang in the air. Marcus gestured to chairs arranged around his workstation. "Please sit. Tell me more about your people, not just the medical data, but who you are. Sometimes understanding the heart of a species is as important as understanding their genome." As they settled into conversation, Serafina found herself studying this human who might hold her people's salvation in his hands. Hearts across the stars. 3 weeks had passed since Serafina's arrival at Nexus Prime, and the laboratory had become her second home. She spent her days working alongside Marcus, sharing detailed records of Valorian physiology while learning about human genetics in return. What had begun as a purely scientific collaboration had evolved into something neither had expected. "The cellular regeneration patterns are fascinating," Marcus murmured, adjusting the holographic display that showed a three-dimensional model of Valorian DNA. Your people's longevity comes from this self-repairing mechanism, but it seems to have become too efficient. The genetic diversity that drives reproduction has been edited out over generations. Serafina nodded, her fingers dancing through the light projection to highlight specific sequences. My grandmother used to say that perfection was the enemy of life. I never understood what she meant until now. Her voice carried a note of sadness that made Marcus look up from his notes. "Tell me about her," he said softly, setting aside his data pad. Over the past weeks, he'd learned that Serafina opened up more when their conversations moved beyond pure science. A gentle smile graced her features. Grandmother Celestine was the last of the old storytellers. She remembered when Valorian children were born every few months across our world, when the nursery spires echoed with laughter instead of silence. Serafina's eyes grew distant. She taught me the ancient lullabies, the ones mothers sang to help their babies sleep. I was the last child she ever held. Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest. "I understand something about being the last," he said quietly. "My daughter Emma would have been 7 next month. She died in the Kepler colony incident along with my wife." They had never spoken of personal loss before, though each had sensed grief in the other. The weight of shared sorrow seemed to fill the space between them, creating an unexpected intimacy. "What was she like?" Serafina asked, her voice gentle as morning rain. Marcus's eyes softened. "Curious about everything. She collected rocks from different worlds and made up stories about where they came from. Sarah, my wife, used to say Emma would either become a geologist or a fantasy writer." He pulled up a hollow image from his personal files, a laughing child with his brown eyes and her mother's blonde hair. She wanted to meet aliens someday, real ones, not just the pictures in her learning tablets. Serafina reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing his hand. She would have loved the Valorians. We cherished children above all else. Or we did when we had them to cherish. "What about your family?" Marcus asked. "I had a sister, Nerissa. She was 3 years younger and twice as brave as me." Serafina's voice caught slightly. She volunteered for the first experimental fertility treatments. The doctors said the genetic modifications might work, might give her body the ability to conceive again. She paused, composing herself. Instead, the treatments accelerated the cellular breakdown. I held her hand as she faded away, becoming transparent like morning mist until... Marcus moved closer, his hand covering hers completely. "I'm sorry. That must have been devastating." "She made me promise something before she died," Serafina continued, her violet eyes meeting his brown ones. "She made me promise that I would find a way to hear children's laughter again, even if it meant leaving everything familiar behind." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared losses creating an unexpected bond. Around them, the laboratory hummed with quiet efficiency, but the universe had narrowed to just the two of them. "Marcus," Serafina said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, "when you look at the compatibility projections, what do you see? Honestly?" He turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "I see possibility. The genetic markers suggest that Valorian-human hybridization could work. Not just theoretically, actually work. Your people's sophisticated DNA repair mechanisms could complement human genetic diversity." "And personally?" she asked, her heart racing. "What do you see when you look at me?" Marcus reached up, gently tucking a strand of silver hair behind her ear. "I see someone who's carrying the hopes of an entire world on her shoulders. Someone who's braver than she knows. And..." He hesitated, then continued with quiet honesty. "Someone who's making me remember what it feels like to hope again." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibilities neither quite dared to name. Sacred request. The observation deck of Nexus Prime offered a breathtaking view of the binary star system, its twin suns casting ethereal shadows across the space station's hull. It was here that Serafina had asked Marcus to meet her, away from the clinical sterility of the laboratory and the curious eyes of other researchers. 2 months had passed since their first meeting, and the genetic compatibility tests had yielded promising results. But tonight, as Serafina stood silhouetted against the star field, Marcus sensed this conversation would transcend mere scientific collaboration. "The Valorian Council contacted me today," she said without turning around, her voice carrying across the quiet space. "They're pleased with our progress. They want to begin formal hybridization protocols within the month." Marcus joined her at the viewing portal, noting the tension in her posture. "That's good news. The genetic modeling suggests a high probability of successful conception and healthy offspring." "Yes," she replied, but her tone suggested anything but celebration. "They've already selected candidates. 12 Valorian females deemed most genetically compatible. The procedure would be clinical, efficient. Each woman would be paired with a human volunteer for the duration necessary to achieve conception." Something cold settled in Marcus's stomach. "I see. And you?" Serafina finally turned to face him, her violet eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I would be among them, of course. As ambassador, I'm expected to participate in the first wave." She paused, her hands trembling slightly. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. These past weeks working with you, learning about your world, your people, your heart, they've changed me." The space between them seemed to pulse with unspoken emotion. Marcus waited, sensing the weight of what she was struggling to say. "When I was a child," she continued, her voice growing stronger, "my mother used to tell me stories of the old bonding ceremonies. Valorians didn't just reproduce. We formed soul bonds with our chosen partners. The joining was sacred, born of love and mutual choosing, not clinical necessity." She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the flecks of silver in her violet irises. "I used to dream of such a bond, of choosing someone who would see me not as a vessel for the future, but as a woman worthy of love." Marcus felt his heart racing. "Serafina, let me finish, please," she whispered, reaching up to place her palm against his chest. "I know what I'm about to ask is selfish. I know it complicates everything, but I can't bear the thought of giving my body to a stranger, of bringing a child into this universe through cold, mechanical coupling." She took a shaky breath, gathering her courage. "Marcus, I'm asking you to be my partner. Not just for the genetic program, but truly. I'm asking you to choose me, as I choose you. I want our child to be conceived in love, not laboratory sterility." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at her, his mind reeling with the implications of her request. When he didn't immediately respond, Serafina's composure began to crack. "I know I have no right to ask this of you," she continued, her voice breaking. "You barely know me, and I'm asking you to father a child with someone from another world. But Marcus, when I close my eyes at night, I dream of a little one with your gentle brown eyes and your kind heart. I dream of singing Valorian lullabies to a baby who carries the best of both our peoples." Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, and she turned away in embarrassment. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. This was foolish of me." Marcus reached out, gently turning her back to face him. "Serafina, look at me." When her tearful eyes met his, he continued, "You're asking me to help save your species. But more than that, you're asking me to build a family with you. After Emma and Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over forever." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "These past weeks, you've shown me that my heart isn't as broken as I thought. You've made me want to hope again, to believe in the possibility of love and new beginnings. "Does that mean?" she whispered. "It means I need you to understand what you're asking," Marcus replied seriously. "If we do this, if we choose each other, it won't just be about creating a child. I couldn't be with you, love you, and then walk away. Are you prepared for that? Are you ready to build a life together, not just fulfill a genetic imperative?" Serafina's breath caught. "You're saying yes." "I'm saying I've been falling in love with you for weeks, and I was too afraid to admit it even to myself." Marcus leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "If you want to choose me, Serafina of Valoria, then I choose you too, completely, forever." She rose on her toes, closing the final distance between them, and pressed her lips to his in a kiss that tasted of starlight and promises. When they finally parted, both were breathless. "The council won't understand," she whispered against his lips. "Then we'll make them understand," Marcus replied, holding her close as the twin suns set behind them, painting the cosmos in shades of gold and possibility. Union of souls. The private quarters Marcus had been assigned were modest but comfortable, with a large viewing window that looked out onto the nebula fields beyond Nexus Prime. Tonight, those distant clouds of cosmic dust seemed to glow with an inner fire, as if the universe itself was celebrating the choice two souls had made. Serafina stood by the window, her ceremonial robes replaced by a flowing gown of deep midnight blue that seemed to capture starlight in its folds. She had braided her silver hair with small crystals that chimed softly when she moved, a Valorian tradition for moments of sacred significance. "Are you certain?" Marcus asked softly, approaching her from behind. His own formal clothes felt strange, after weeks in laboratory attire, but tonight called for something more than casual wear. She turned in his arms, her violet eyes luminous in the ambient light. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." Her hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. "On Valoria, we have a saying. The heart knows its home before the mind recognizes the address. My heart has been calling your name since the day we met." Marcus lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. "I want you to know, whatever happens with the council, whatever political storms we face, this is real for me. You are real for me. Show me," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Their kiss began tentatively, a question and answer between two beings from different worlds. But as passion ignited, all hesitation melted away. Marcus's hands tangled in her crystalline hair as Serafina pressed closer, her body molding against his with perfect synchronicity. "I love you," he murmured against her throat, tasting the subtle sweetness of her skin. "I love your strength, your compassion, the way you make me believe in tomorrow again." "And I love you," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Your gentleness, your brilliant mind, the way you see hope where others see only data." They moved together toward the sleeping alcove, each gesture deliberate and reverent. This was not merely physical joining, but a sacred merging of souls across the vastness of space. When they finally came together, skin against skin, heartbeat matching heartbeat, it felt like coming home to a place neither had known they were searching for. Their lovemaking was tender and passionate, filled with whispered endearments in two languages and touches that spoke of promises meant to last lifetimes. In the afterglow, as they lay entwined beneath the soft blankets, Serafina traced patterns on Marcus's chest with her fingertips. "Do you think it worked?" she asked quietly, her hand coming to rest over her abdomen. "The genetic compatibility models suggest a high probability," Marcus replied scientifically, then smiled and kissed the top of her head. "But more importantly, yes, I can feel it. Something wonderful has begun." 3 days later, they faced the inevitable confrontation. The Valorian Council had arrived aboard their sleek diplomatic vessel, and their displeasure was palpable. Ambassador Thalion, Seraphina's superior, paced the conference room like a caged predator. "This is not what was agreed upon," he declared, his voice sharp with authority. "The hybridization program requires careful genetic matching, controlled conditions, multiple participants, not this emotional complication." "With respect, Ambassador," Marcus interjected, rising from his seat, "the emotional component may be exactly what was missing from your previous attempts. Love, bonding, the desire to nurture. These aren't just human concepts. They're biological imperatives that affect everything from hormone production to genetic expression." "Dr. Webb speaks the truth," Seraphina added, standing beside him. "Our ancestors didn't reproduce through clinical procedures. They bonded, they chose each other, they created families built on love. Perhaps that's why we're failing now. We've forgotten how to truly connect." The debate raged for hours, with representatives from multiple species weighing in. Some supported the traditional approach, others found merit in Marcus and Seraphina's argument. Finally, Dr. Ixara, the station's chief medical officer, requested permission to speak. "I've been monitoring both participants since their union," she announced, her reptilian features grave. "The preliminary scans show not just successful conception, but optimal fetal development. The genetic markers are stronger than any we've seen in previous human-alien hybrid attempts." A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. Ambassador Thalion's expression shifted from anger to cautious hope. "Furthermore," Dr. Ixara continued, "I believe their emotional bond may be actively enhancing the genetic compatibility. Love, as it turns out, may be the most powerful catalyst for successful reproduction between species." Marcus felt Seraphina's hand slip into his, their fingers intertwining. "We're not asking you to abandon the program," he said to the assembly. "We're asking you to modify it. Let pairs choose each other. Allow time for genuine connection. Give love a chance to work alongside science." The vote was close, but ultimately, the council agreed to a trial program based on their model. As the delegates filed out, discussing implementation details, Marcus and Seraphina remained behind, holding each other close. "We did it," she whispered against his shoulder. "We actually convinced them." "We did more than that," Marcus replied, his hand gently resting on her still flat abdomen. "We started something beautiful." New dawn. Rising 6 months had passed since the council meeting, and the garden dome of New Valoria Station bloomed with life from a dozen worlds. Seraphina sat on a bench beneath a flowering Terran cherry tree, her hand resting on her prominently rounded belly. The pregnancy had progressed beautifully. With their daughter, for the scans had revealed she carried a girl, developing perfectly according to both human and Valorian timelines. Marcus approached carrying 2 cups of herbal tea, a daily ritual they'd established since moving to their new home. The station had been constructed specifically for the Hybrid Families program, designed to accommodate multiple species in comfort and harmony. "Dr. Ixara says everything looks perfect," he reported, settling beside his wife. They had been married, in a ceremony that blended human and Valorian traditions, witnessed by representatives from both worlds. "Our little Celeste is growing exactly as she should." Seraphina smiled at the name they'd chosen together, Celeste, meaning heavenly in the ancient human tongue, while carrying echoes of Celestine, her beloved grandmother. "She's been active today. I think she's as eager to see this universe as we are to meet her." Around them, the garden buzzed with quiet activity. Other couples from the program walked the paths, a human woman with her Valorian partner, a Centaurian male with his human mate, even a few 3-way bonds that had formed between compatible species. The program had expanded beyond anyone's wildest hopes. "I received word from Earth today," Marcus said, his arm encircling Seraphina's shoulders. "The Xenobiology department wants to establish a permanent research position here. They're calling what we've accomplished the greatest breakthrough in interspecies relations in galactic history. "And from Valoria?" Serafina asked, leaning into his warmth. 17 successful pregnancies this cycle," Marcus replied with wonder in his voice. "The highest birth rate your people have seen in over a century." Ambassador Thalion actually smiled when he told me. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the artificial sunset paint the dome in brilliant oranges and purples. In the distance, they could hear children playing, the first generation of hybrid offspring, healthy and thriving, their laughter echoing through the corridors, just as Serafina had dreamed. "Marcus," she said suddenly, her hand gripping his tightly. I think it's time." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Ixara and her medical team had prepared extensively for this moment, the birth of the first Valorian-human hybrid conceived through love rather than clinical procedure. As Serafina labored, Marcus never left her side, whispering encouragement and holding her hand through each contraction. "I can see her head," Dr. Ixara announced, her voice filled with excitement. "She's beautiful, perfect features from both species." With one final push, Celeste entered the universe with a lusty cry that seemed to echo through the station itself. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as Dr. Ixara placed the tiny, perfect baby in Serafina's arms. Celeste was breathtaking. She had Marcus's warm brown eyes, but with flecks of violet that caught the light like gems. Her hair was fine, and dark like his, but with subtle silver threads that marked her Valorian heritage. Her skin held the golden glow common to both species when healthy and happy. "Hello, little star," Serafina whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We've been waiting so long to meet you." Marcus leaned down to kiss both his wife and daughter, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had accomplished. "She's perfect. Absolutely perfect." Later that evening, as the three of them rested together in the recovery suite, Marcus held his daughter while Serafina slept peacefully beside them. Through the viewing window, he could see the stars wheeling slowly overhead, the same stars that had brought him and Serafina together, that had witnessed their love bloom across the void between worlds. "Your mother and I changed the galaxy for you," he whispered to the sleeping infant. "We proved that love really can conquer anything, even the space between species, between worlds, between hearts that thought they could never heal." Celeste opened her eyes at the sound of his voice, those remarkable brown-violet orbs focusing on his face with an intelligence that seemed almost ancient. In that moment, Marcus knew with absolute certainty that their daughter would grow up in a universe where love had triumphed over fear, where different species could truly become one family. As dawn broke over New Valoria Station, the first dawn of a new era, Marcus held his wife and daughter close, watching the light chase away the last shadows of doubt. They had kept their promise to both their peoples, but more importantly, they had kept their promise to each other. In the months and years to come, Celeste would be joined by dozens of other hybrid children, each one a living testament to the power of choosing love over fear. The Valorian extinction had been averted not through cold science alone, but through the warmest, most human emotion of all, the courage to open one's heart to another. And somewhere in the garden dome, the cherry trees continued to bloom, their petals falling like blessings on the children who played beneath their branches, the first generation of a truly united galaxy.